Hello and good day everyone, and welcome to the very first video of a brand new series here on Adventures with Parker, AWP Park Reviews. As the name implies, these videos will involve in-depth reviews of theme parks that I visit. Now, I already kinda give reviews in my adventure vlogs. I always share my in-the-moment thoughts on things that I experience. However, I don't necessarily discuss everything that someone might want to know about a park. Plus, I often find that I gain new perspective on things when I look back on them several weeks or months into the future. So yeah, that's exactly where AWP Park Reviews comes in. Similar to my theme park parlay series, these videos will focus on in-depth discussions surrounding different categories or aspects of a theme park visit, and each of them will be given a score out of 10. And so, today's video will dish out the sweet and the sour of my first visit to the sweetest place on earth, Hershey Park. This trip took place on Saturday, November 20th, and coincided with the park's holiday event, Christmas Candylane. And yes, I'll be talking about that in today's video too. So, without any further ado, let the reviews begin. Starting off with the thrill rides, I give Hershey Park a 6 out of 10. Now, if any Hershey Park regulars think that this score might be a little low, keep in mind that I'm basing this score and all of the other scores in this video on my visit and experiences. And my visit happened to be during a time of year when some of the park's top thrill rides were closed for the season. And on top of that, some of the other rides that were scheduled to be open were actually down on the day that I was there. Nevertheless, I did get a couple rides on Candymonium, the park's B&M hypercoaster, and it was fantastic. It's probably my favorite hypercoaster out there, and I currently have it ranked as my third favorite coaster overall. I still say that the best moment is that wave turn. I just love the sensation of sideways airtime. I also got a chance to ride the Hershey Tower, which was really fun and gave great views of the park, although I'll admit that it wasn't as intense as I was anticipating. And those were the only two thrill rides I got to experience. They do have a Chance Rides Revolution called The Claw. But I think the park could definitely use some more thrilling flat rides overall. Now, I should say that Hershey Park's overall coaster collection looks phenomenal. Seeing rides like Storm Runner and Sky Rush in person, but not being able to ride them was such a tease. I know this score will be higher after I return this summer, but if we're strictly talking about a Christmas Candylane visit when 2 of the 6 coasters that were scheduled to be open weren't, I'm comfortable leaving it as a 6 for now. One place where Hershey Park really shines is in their family rides, which I am scoring as an 8 out of 10. They have so many cool flat rides scattered throughout the park, plus some fun family-friendly coasters, like Laugh Track, which, if you've seen my Hershey Park vlog, you'll know that was a pleasant surprise for me. Mind you, I think my opinion of it might be inflated by the fact that it had this awesome holiday overlay for Christmas Candylane, but even if we ignore that, it was butter smooth, had the perfect amount of spinning so that it was thrilling but not nauseating, and even had some small moments of airtime on the larger drops. Another ride with a cool holiday overlay that I got to experience was the Dry Gulch Railroad. It could have been a little longer, but you can never go wrong with a miniature railroad, especially one lined with Christmas lights. And the last ride that I got to experience was Reese's Cup Fusion, which is a modern Sally Kors shooting dark ride. I would say that this ride is pretty good as far as regional dark rides go. It's mostly screen-based, but it also has a few practical effects as well. The storyline is a little weird, not to spoil anything, but the premise centers on Mint the Merciless and his band of misfit candy as they attempt to steal the Crystal Cup. And your job is to use your blasters to focus your Reese's spirit and stop them. It's easy enough to follow, but it has a few glaring plot holes. Like, the whole situation could have been avoided if the Reese's Cups just accepted these misfit candies with all of their flaws and imperfections because, gosh darn it, it's 2022 and diversity makes us stronger. Where was I? Oh yeah. The track also has these weird elevation changes that don't exactly make sense, but they add an interesting dynamic to the ride, I guess. As a dark ride enthusiast, I'd say that it's a good ride to try if you have some time, but if you don't have kids and you're limited on time, it's skippable. Other than that, Hershey has a ton of flat rides that the whole family can enjoy, including some classics like a Ferris wheel, a sky ride, a monorail, and even an old whip ride, which is high on my list of priorities for my next visit. In terms of rides geared towards younger children, I'm giving Hershey Park a 7 out of 10. Obviously, I didn't experience any for myself, but Hershey seems to have a solid collection. One thing I found interesting is that Hershey Park doesn't have a dedicated children's area. The kids' rides are actually scattered throughout the park, which I kind of like. If one family member wanted to ride the Triple Tower, for example, it's easy for them to do so because the kiddos can just wait and ride the little convoy ride that's right next door. That said, I think a mini-land themed to the Hershey characters would be so freaking adorable, and that would also be a fun excuse to see more Hershey theming within the park. Next up is one of my personal favorite categories, and that is the food, for which I'm giving Hershey Park a solid 7 out of 10. Which honestly might be a little low, but I'm being conservative with this score because I only got to have 2 meals during my visit, and one of them was technically outside of the park. Starting with 1906 Grill, I had the bacon cheeseburger. For some reason, I was expecting this restaurant to be a little more than it was, if that makes sense. I don't know, maybe I thought there'd be a bigger menu, maybe I thought the burgers would be a little more extravagant, but putting those preconceived biases aside, it was pretty solid as far as burgers go. It was tasty, and it hit the spot just right. And I'd say it has good value for what you're getting. Now, I have half a video about my experience at the Chocolatier, but the SparkNotes version is that it was very, very good, but expensive. The milkshakes are something that you have to try at least once in your life, but if you're also going to have an entire meal with it like I did, you might want to consider tag teaming it with a friend, or be open to getting a takeout box for leftovers. It should also be noted that the Chocolatier is technically located outside of the park in Chocolate Town, so you're free to visit it anytime you want, even if you don't have a theme park ticket. But yeah, it looks like Hershey Park has a decent collection of food offerings. For the most part, it looks like your typical American theme park food, burgers, fries, hot dogs, pizza, but it looks like you can also get some Mexican food and Greek food, and there's a few chain restaurants too, like Starbucks, Chick-fil-A, and Subway. However, the one thing I want to try on my next visit are the world-famous crab fries from Chickies and Pete's. For theming and atmosphere, I give Hershey Park a 6.5 out of 10. And honestly, I'm still a little bit conflicted on that ranking. One thing you should understand when you visit Hershey Park is that it's not necessarily a Hershey-themed park. I mean, sure, you have rides like Candymonium, Triple Tower, Reese's Cup Fusion, and the Kissing Tower that all feature that chocolate-inspired theming. But for the most part, Hershey Park leans more into the classic amusement park kind of vibe. Like I said earlier, the park is full of old flat rides like the Flying Eagles, the Whip, the Scrambler. You see the Hershey stuff here and there, but it's not overpowering. All in all, I really like the atmosphere of Hershey Park. That classic park feel is hard to come by these days, and I'd say that Hershey does a good job at balancing it with a more corporate Hershey candy branding. If anything, I wish the park leaned more into the theming of each area. For example, one area of the park is called Pioneer Frontier, and if I didn't see it on the map, I don't think I would have gotten that just by walking around. And like I said, I'd love to see a kids area specifically themed to the Hershey characters. But yeah, I wouldn't say Hershey Park is a true theme park, but it definitely has character. Now, I want to take a moment to address Christmas Candylane. Obviously, this isn't going to be a category I discuss in all of my park reviews, but it was such a significant part of my experience that I felt like it was worth discussing. And perhaps seasonal events will be scored in future videos if they're relevant to my visits. Anyways, I'm giving Christmas Candylane a 7 out of 10. The way I like to describe Christmas Candylane is that it's like an overlay to the park. What I mean by that is, compared to an event like Winterfest that completely takes over the park during the winter, Christmas Candylane just felt like an add-on to a normal Hersheypark visit. Mind you, I don't really know what a normal Hersheypark visit looks like at this time, but yeah, it's a different vibe from other Christmas events I've attended. Some things I really enjoyed about it include the fact that the entire park is completely covered in Christmas lights. There were very few, if any, spots where I felt like the decorations were lacking. I loved the holiday overlays on the laugh track and Dry Gulch Railroad, and I believe the Twin Turnpike also got a similar treatment. They also had this awesome dancing light show called Noel surrounding the big lagoon in the hollow, and that was really cool to see. And although I didn't experience these personally, they also had a meet and greet with Santa and a place where you can pet and feed his reindeer. Now, as for where Christmas Candylane falls short, I kinda wish there were more shows. It doesn't have to be like Winterfest where you can find a different show every 50 steps or so, but one or two besides the light show would have been nice. I'm also surprised by the lack of holiday food items. We all know I'm a sucker for seasonal pastries. Overall, Christmas Candylane gave the park a nice touch of Christmas, but I wouldn't say it's anything to go out of your way for. Next up is operations, and this is a category that can vary quite a bit from visit to visit, but based on the one and only day I was at Hersheypark, I'm giving it a 4 out of 10. It could be worse, but I can't say it was good. First of all, I spent almost 2 hours in line for Candymonium. And don't get me wrong, I'm used to waiting in long lines, especially for headlining attractions like B&M Hypers. But the problem was that the coaster was only running with 2 trains when they could have been running 3. But even if they did have that 3rd train out, dispatches were so slow that trains were waiting on the brake run anyways. I also found that dispatches for the Hershey Tower were on the slow side, and it was the only tower of the 3 that was running that night. Now, I'm not sure if the other 2 were even scheduled to be open for Christmas Candylane, but it probably would have helped the capacity if they were. One last thing that I found incredibly disappointing is that 2 of the 6 coasters that were supposed to be open, Super Duper Looper and Wildcat, were closed. Apparently it was because of the weather, but I didn't think it was overly cold or rainy that day. But I'm not a ride engineer, so what do I know? But yeah, that was disappointing because although Candymonium was the main draw for me, it was that supporting lineup of coasters that really convinced me that it would be worthwhile to go on such a big trip. Mind you, I had an amazing visit and I don't regret going, but at the same time, I think I would have waited if I'd known then what I know now. But where operations lacked, service definitely made up for it with a 9.5 out of 10. I cannot say enough good things about the staff at Hersheypark, and this is true for all areas of the park, from the parking lot, to the zoo, to the ride operators, to whoever runs the social media accounts. We often hold Disney as the gold standard of guest service within the theme park industry, but I'd say that Hersheypark is in that league. Everyone is just so friendly and helpful. And remember those 2 coasters that were closed because of the weather? Yeah, because of that, Hershey gave everyone who was at the park that night free return vouchers. Like, what? I can't name a single park who would do something like that. Between that and just regular employee interactions, I am beyond impressed with the service at Hersheypark. For cleanliness, I'm giving Hersheypark an 8.5 out of 10. I don't have too much to say about this category, but everything seemed tidy, and I didn't see any litter anywhere. If anything, maybe I'd like to see more sanitation of commonly touched surfaces, especially given the fact that we're still in a pandemic, but that could also be something that they do already, and I just didn't witness it firsthand. And I didn't factor this into the score, but just for your information, and this could change at any time, but at least during my visit, masks were not required anywhere. Indoors, outdoors, on rides, in queues. I kept mine on anyways, but that might be something to consider if you're concerned about COVID precautions. I've decided to pair walkability and accessibility together because, well, they're kind of related and it makes sense. But I'm giving Hersheypark a 7 out of 10. I think they do a good job at accessibility overall, but I think that's pretty standard for theme parks in this day and age. I did dock a few points for walkability though. The park has so many hills. Before I went, I was told that no matter where you go in Hershey Park, it always feels like you're going uphill, and I feel that. I wouldn't say that these hills are overly steep, but it is something you notice. I'm also not a fan of the park layout. It's a little confusing, and it's easy to get lost if you don't know where you're going. I may or may not be speaking from experience on that one. It kind of has a big T shape, and with the river running through everything, you also get these bridges and the loops that can be confusing at times, not to mention the park has a few dead ends. For overall value, I'm giving Hershey a 7.5 out of 10. Winter admission to Hershey and Christmas Candylane is going to cost you about $45 US. This is significantly cheaper than their regular admission price, and considering that you're getting 6 coasters, almost all of the other rides and attractions, plus a few holiday offerings, that's not bad. Now, if you're more of a coaster enthusiast, just be aware that some of the star attractions are closed during the winter, and some coasters may close for weather, as they did for me. Another thing to keep in mind is that you're not going to get a full day out of the park if you visit during the winter. On the day of my visit, it was open from 2 to 9, but I arrived later than expected, so I didn't actually get through the gates until 3, and there are a few days when the operating hours are shorter still. But yeah, I'd say it has a good value overall, and that would especially be true if you're visiting as a family. And the moment you've all been waiting for, assuming I did the math correctly, my overall score for my November 2021 visit to Hershey Park and Christmas Candylane is 71%. Although it wasn't a perfect visit, I really did enjoy my time at Hershey Park overall. And for all of the things that didn't work out in my favor, well, it just makes me want to return to the park even more. I honestly think that Hershey Park could be one of my favorite parks out there, so I'm excited to see what the regular season is like, and to get those credits that I missed. One last thing I want to mention is that I think I could have had a better visit if I had started at the back of the park and worked my way forward. Candymonium had such a long line by the time I arrived, but it died down significantly by the end of the night. So I think I could have been smarter about maximizing my time in the park. I also think that making my first visit to Hershey Park during Christmas Candylane maybe wasn't the best decision. Don't get me wrong, I love the event, but with the limited hours and with so many rides closed, I just felt rushed and perhaps a little overwhelmed. But again, really looking forward to getting back here soon, and I will definitely have to give an updated review when I do. Anyways, thank you so much for watching my first AWP Park Review. What are your thoughts on Hershey Park and or Christmas Candylane? Comment below and let me know. Also comment if you have any suggestions on how I can improve these review videos. Do you think I should be discussing any other categories? Do you agree with my scoring system? Is this a format you guys like in general? Just anything that comes to mind on how I can improve, I want to hear it. That said, for more future reviews, plus theme park, travel, local, and outdoor adventures, you might want to consider becoming a subscriber. Also be sure to like, comment, subscribe, share, and all that wonderful YouTube stuff. If you like hearing me blab on about random theme park things, you might also want to consider following me on social media, which you can do so at AWP Parker. With that, thanks again for watching, and as always, the adventures are calling. See ya.